Now, I guess I didn't ask anybody here that has attended, but since we're recording this, do we have to sign anything?
Good question.
What's the
Yes.
question? You could do a verbal consent.
Yeah, okay, so verbal consent would be cool.
You could say, is everyone in this room comfortable with being filmed?
Is anybody here not comfortable with being filmed? Is it okay that I film you?
Can you wash off my face later?
Yeah, good question.
It's a good question. So,
You can make me look 20 years younger.
I was like, we need to like blur out your face or your voice or anything like that, because we'll be doing like a Q&A thing.
I want mine to be like a British voice when you
Okay, so we need a British voice actor to be able to
do the voiceover.
to do the voiceover for you. Okay, I like it. Is there anyone in particular that you're thinking about right now that you want to?
Cumberbatch, of course.
I want an Australian accent.
How much time do we got here? I want to start exactly on time, so we've got 11:30. No. Right. So I think on Facebook there was on Eventbrite? Oh. And it might have been just because I told people that I was recording this and that we were going to be doing live streaming, and they're like, I'm going to sit at home. Yeah. Excellent. And you're like, if I would have known that, I would have just stayed at home. Thanks, guys. It's okay. I need to learn how to talk to the camera anyway. So I told you. You were like, I know. See, I like the fact that people coming down and support me. I appreciate that. Smiling faces. It's fantastic. Awesome. And going live here shortly. I'm going to go ahead and actually open up that other doc just as a reference, just in case I didn't write all my notes down in there. Awesome. And it's 11:30? Right on. And we are live. Excellent. Hi. Welcome. How you guys doing? Thank you so much for showing up today. And thank you, everyone, for attending. If you are live streaming right now on Facebook, I appreciate it very much. I never know what camera I'm supposed to be looking at, so I'm just going to keep on going like this. I'm not shaking my head no. I'm just trying to figure out where to look. Yeah. So thank you so much for attending. My name is Charles White. I own Charles White Services. We're here to talk about CRMs. Now, we're not going to be going over any particular CRMs because this is really like the prerequisite information that you need to be thinking about even before you make that selection. So I'm not here to endorse any. I may give some recommendations or talk about some CRMs that I've used in the past. However, that's really not what this is about. So the three things that we're going to be going over today are how to identify what needs your sales team has. We're going to be talking about how to pick the right CRM, and then once you've done that, how to get started with analytics. Okay, so those are our three main topics, three things that we're going to be going over today. And getting started off with, does anybody know what CRM actually stands for? Customer Relationship Management, absolutely. So that is exactly what it stands for. Now, knowing that, could you guess what CRMS stands for? Close. But customer relationships made simple. And the reason why I like using CRMS more so than customer relationship management is because this makes you feel like you have to have an extremely specialized tool that thing is going to be extremely specific, and if it doesn't say CRM on it, then you're not accomplishing what you need. But really what you're going after is making customer relationships simple, right? Is having a documented process and going through that process on a consistent basis to be able to figure out how you can make tweaks, and if you're going after the right kinds of clients, if you're talking to those clients in the right kind of way, that sort of thing. So really what we're going after is more simplicity, not trying to make your sales process more complicated, right? So let's just kind of think about that instead of always thinking CRM has to be the system that says CRM on the label, right? So the first thing that you need to do is identify your sales team's needs. There's two different ways that you are going to be looking at your sales team, right? Are they doing B2B sales? Are they going and sitting down in some sort of office, sitting across from somebody else that is a main decision maker? Or the kind of sales that you're going to be doing are going to be focused on, right, someone coming up to a cash register? Are they buying your product online? There's a lot of different ways that you need to start thinking about those two very main differences, right? The B2B to B2C, and how you approach CRMs are going to be extremely different based off of the kind of sales that you're going to be doing. So that's the first thing you need to identify. How many people are on your sales force, right? Are you just by yourself? Are you having a couple people on your team? Or do you have a whole sales force that is, whole teams of people and managers and different levels of everything, right? The needs of your CRM system are going to be dependent upon how many people are really going to be accessing it. And you're going to think about, is it just you right now and you want to grow into something where you're going to have teams of people? Go ahead and start setting yourself up for that. Or is this something that you know that you're always going to have as a more smaller influence system, and you don't need as many of those communication tools and different levels of management to go along with it. So it's extremely important to identify the kind of sales force that you're going to be going after as well. Then we also have where you're going to be operating from, right? Are you going to be operating from a desk most of the time when you're doing these sales? Are you going to be operating from an office somewhere? Or are you going to be mobile? Are you going to be going around in your car, coffee shop to coffee shop? You know, I actually like doing that. I like going and finding different coffee shops that I could work through and have as my office for the day. So are you that type of person as well? Or are you going to be sitting at a desktop where it's always going to be the same? And there's different platforms for that sort of thing as well. Are you going after something that needs to have a regular desktop version, or is it going to be something that you're going to need to quickly operate from your phone? Those kind of things are what you need to start thinking about as you're going through this. And where's your sales team located, right? So are you all sitting right next to each other? Are you all in the same office? Is that something that you could just have a discussion over a specific lead or client over? Or are they just around the world? I mean, we live in an area where you could operate a business here from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and be selling across the world. So is that something that they could access from wherever they're at? And is it something that you could readily have updated information when you wake up in the morning, you know, your sales team in Hong Kong or in the UK, right? What happened over there? Are you instantaneously updated about that? Or are you just having a meeting every single morning with your team face to face to be able to go over this information, right? A lot of these things is talking about going over your internal process. And this is the reason why you need to start thinking about these things before you choose a CRM, because you need to think about how you already have that set up, and if you haven't set that up, start documenting how you would like it to be, right? So these are just a few of the areas that you need to start thinking about in terms of how you're developing your team to be able to set up to start tracking your sales. Now, how to pick the right CRM? Features. It's all about exactly what kind of features that you're looking for. And we're going to go over a few of these things that you might need to start thinking about that are options in terms of a CRM. The first thing I'd like you to think about is all of your inbound channels, right? These are all of the different ways that, well, not even all of them, right? I mean, you could go through your social medias, right? Are you posting on Instagram and is someone making a comment on there? Are they messaging you directly? Are you posting a link on there that's then actually heading to a website with a landing page? Are you going into Twitter and doing paid ads? The same thing with LinkedIn or Facebook, right? How are they getting a hold of you as clients, right? So if, again, you're selling a product and it's more of a B2C kind of product where most of the time it's going to be more hands-off, how can you start automating some of these funnels? In fact, I was actually talking to someone earlier. They were saying, you know what? We operate in a way that's extremely multifaceted. We have certain emails that people will contact us through. We have the office phone, we have our personal cell phones, right? We have a form on our website. We have all these different channels that are bringing in leads to us, but we don't really have a way to be able to collate them together. And I feel like I need specialized software that's going to be able to kind of do those things. In fact, if you do a little search, and again, I don't like talking about the very specific CRMs that are out there, because you do a search and there's templates that says, you know, here's all of the features, but maybe you don't know that you need some of these things, right? Are you operating a lot from your phone? Are you operating a lot from your email? Does that CRM that you've chosen integrate with the email that you've chosen. So is that something that you need to maybe think about? Are you running off of a Yahoo? Please tell me that you're not still using AOL or Yahoo emails. And if you do, it's easy to change. They're free accounts, there's paid accounts that you could put all in your own domain and that sort of thing. So please go ahead and start thinking about how you interact with your customers. And not only that, but how does your Salesforce then actually work with your clients, right? How are they actually going and calling out, right? Are they calling your clients? Is it something that you feel that they are emailing on a consistent basis? Are they actually doing drop-ins, right? So do they need to record information when they're there and they're performing interviews or they're performing some sort of sales function, right? Is that something that they need to be thinking about in terms of what you would like? There's a lot of systems out there actually that are so specialized that they will provide templates for you for each one of those mediums. So if you're interested in doing text message campaigns, you could put that information inside your CRM and with their templates, have a very active way to be able to stay in front of that client as well. Is that something that you want your Salesforce to be in charge of? Is that more of a marketing function that you want to have control of? Those are also some of the other things as well that you want to start thinking about. How much control do you want your Salesforce to actually have of your CRM? And there's certain CRMs that allow you to be able to put restrictions on the functions and the areas that they have access to. And there's other simpler ones that if you're talking about a smaller workforce, that then doesn't have to, that they don't feel that they need to put restrictions on there, and they allow them to have access to a whole database. So if you have a distributed workforce, a distributed Salesforce, you should think a little bit about how much you're really putting the trust into those. And I'm not saying that you should hire people that you don't trust, but what I am saying is that if you have someone that again is in another country, in another state, in another territory, you don't want them to be bogged down with also going through menus and menus and menus of those other territories as well. So I'm getting a little off base here, but you need to start thinking a little bit about, again, the areas in which you're going to be funneling information into your CRM. And when you start building those out, a lot of ways that you need to start thinking about is the different pieces of information that you're actually gathering. So the information that you're gathering from Twitter, from Facebook, from Instagram is going to be really different than the specified information that you actually could pull in from a form on your website. Or what about, like, if they're calling into your business, do you have whoever's answering that phone a standard format for the information that they're gathering from there? Do you have a way for them to be able to say, I've asked this question, but I didn't get this information, or maybe they don't know it? You know, is there a hierarchy of when the lead comes in that if they start asking questions that they know who to pass it off to? You know, is there a way that you've delivered information to that person that they then can say, I know exactly without, you know, a doubt about the progression of how this call should go? And you start, again, building out those kinds of procedures as you're thinking about where these channels are coming in from and how important that information is. Again, even if you're coming in from, let's say, Facebook, and you're getting some limited information just by them clicking, you know, send my first name, last name, email address from this form, are you also interested in knowing where their location is? Right? Is that information that you need to start pulling in as well? Are you talking about the size of, if it's a B2B business, are you talking about the size of customer that they are? Are you a 1 to 3 employee business, or are you a 500 employee business, right? The level of leads that are coming in for these different platforms, if you're not thinking about the information that you're gathering from them, are going to be nowhere near as detailed as you're going to want them to be initially, right? There's no way that you could say that I know exactly all the information that I want. So you're going to have to experiment a little bit around the information that you're pulling in and how difficult it is to be able to put it inside that system as well. You need to think about what kind of tools you're already currently using, right? And this is one where I really couldn't figure out all the different pictures to go along with it, but marketing, accounting, and project management tools. You're probably already using 1, 2, or all 3 of these different levels of tools that you have, right? But are they able to then go from your CRM, which is the start of the process, then through fulfillment, and then into an upkeep phase, right? So how do you transfer information from the client and the lead, I made a sale, and now I'm ready to actually start servicing that customer or delivering a product, right? So it's a CRM system isn't just about gathering the information, making the sale, and saying I'm done, right? You need to think about like, I've made the sale, how am I going to make sure that the rest of the team knows absolutely for sure that they are getting taken care of and that transaction happens in an appropriate manner. I used to work for a marketing company, and one of the conversations that we had on a very consistent basis was how do you hand off the relationship in between the people that were operating the CRM to the people that were actually taking care of the client, right? And transferring that relationship on over, right? That happens with software, but that also happens as an internal process that you need to start thinking about. There's ways to be able to make sure that all the information in your CRM can get delivered over there, but have you thought about what happens after the sale, and have you connected those systems so effortlessly together that they, again, that trust that has been built with that client through the salesperson is then transferred to whatever your fulfillment process is. And if you're a B2C customer, a kind of person that's going to be using that information, right? Building out usually like an email platform that's connected to something like this that says, we've received your order, right? We're now working, have anybody ever like order from Domino's and then go online and check that little bar that goes through it? And right, you see, it's like that feedback system. Once you've already made the sale, how much feedback are you then getting to your customer in terms of, we've established a relationship, you already said that you have value and that we want to be working together in some way, right? But how much feedback am I then getting to you? And if there's no transfer from the CRM to another system, then everything's going to be screwed up. So you could have the most amazing CRM, be making sales all over the place, but if you're not thinking about, well, what's the next step after that, right? You're going to be losing sales. You're going to be in an area in which you need to really start thinking about, okay, is this a process that I can automate by connecting these systems together? Or is this something that I need to just teach and put into and say, okay, well, just download the information or copy it onto this other system and you hand it off to somebody else. You know, that could all be done digitally or that could be done manually. So you just kind of have to think about how important it is for you to be able to automate those steps. And is there value in actually adding in those touch points that aren't automated, right? A lot of times there are, especially in this day and age, right? We want to talk to somebody. We want to know that they're on the other end of this system that we've built out. And we feel like if we just put all these things together and I'm getting sales and I'm doing all that, can you actually add extra value by putting a human touch on there to be able to say, you know what, if you're at all actually interested, and it could be just an email that you send out, if you're interested in talking with someone about our process and about what the next step is for you, go ahead and email this person. Here's their direct access, right? Can you set that up? Or are you manually going through each one of those clients and saying, I'm interested in actually talking with you more as a client, more as a customer one-on-one. Let's go ahead and have a conversation. Here's my schedule, here's my availability, and let's go ahead and set up the next step in that as well. So you need to start thinking about, again, all these other pieces that you have as part of your process that helps you not only during the sale, but after the sale to be able to do that. Is there anybody here that uses a specified project management tool? I don't know if you use Basecamp. I don't know if you use Trello, right? Those kinds of things, a lot of them, especially the bigger brand ones, are able to connect to most CRMs out there. And I keep on saying CRMs that there has to be like that CRM aspect to it, right? I actually know somebody that just a couple man company, and with them, they actually just have a Google spreadsheet, and they've designed it in a way that there's certain information that they gather, but they know their process so well that they don't need to pay for a monthly CRM, right? All the information that they have in there, the last contact, any extra notes that they have in there, they have it set up so that if a field hasn't been changed in a certain period of time, it goes to different colors, right? There's a lot of ways that you could start thinking about, and in fact, if you want to build part of your process into a spreadsheet to start off with, just so you could understand, do I have enough pieces in here that makes it simple enough that I could transfer this over to something else? That is a really good way to test out, before even buying a CRM, exactly what are the things that you need, and do you have enough processes already in place to be able to help yourself out with it? And what are your modes of communication to potential leads by your salesperson, right? We kind of already talked about this. Talking about, right, are we having face-to-face conversations? How much information are we recording during that conversation, right? Is there an easy way to have that salesperson understand the information that they're supposed to be gathering during that kind of call? Or are you going to conferences? There's software out there that allows you to take a tablet or take your computer and gather information in from being at a conference, where you're scanning business cards or integrating with some conferences that have, in fact, little scanners for the IDs that you hang around your neck, and you could scan their information in. So are you able to take that information from the people that you're visiting the booth, and if conferences are a big thing for you, how are you gathering that information with those kinds of interactions with and integrating it into your sales system? Is that something that you have that's set up, right? Is that something that's important to you? If you're not about doing those face-to-face interactions, right? Are you filling out forms online, right? Are your sales team primarily going to be working from a laptop? Are they going to be working from a more high-powered desktop where they're going to be at a specific location, right? Are they going to be actually talking to your customers via text messaging, right? Is there a way to be able to track their conversations through that as well, right? I mean, we all want to say that we trust everybody that we hire, right? But there's sometimes turnover. There's sometimes an area in which you want to have a coaching moment with somebody, but you don't have the information because they didn't save it or whatever that is, right? So when you said, you know, part of our process is that on day 2, you send them this text message. Did you send it to them? And without even having that conversation, you could go into the CRM and you could automatically see, you didn't send the text message. Well, I could see why, you know, this sale hasn't moved forward at this point, and you could use those different points, and we'll talk about analytics here in a second. I'm getting ahead of myself, but you could talk about those specific points that you're able to have those coaching moments with. So what are the ways that you could do that, right? Are they having phone calls? You could actually call from within the CRM system, built into their own phone number, calling out from their own personal cell phone, using your phone number that you control, and if there's a call that comes in that is part of your database, it will record that phone call. What was the length of it? In fact, some of the CRMs will have it built in that you could listen into those conversations as well, right? Now, that kind of gets into some of the areas that are more about sitting down in a desktop. A lot of the mobile CRMs, you're not going to find as powerful enough to be able to do it, especially if you're looking at an iOS platform. They're a little bit more tied down, so don't expect too much functionality from that, because it is kind of difficult to be able to ask the device to be able to start recording a conversation, or if you're able to jump on that call. So we're talking more about maybe telemarketing CRMs as well. And maybe that's part of the beginning process for you, is how do you start off with a telemarketing crew that then generates your leads, that then passes into an inside salesperson. Well, they take the hot leads and then pass off to someone else. Do you have multiple CRMs? Is that CRM flexible enough that it can handle 200 calls per person per day or even more? And can it pass off to the next level of salesperson that might be out in the field and the next available, right? What exactly is the most optimum way for you to have your connections with your clients? So analytics. It's extremely important to start thinking about the areas that you want to track, right? And one of the first areas is, why is accurate data important in the first place? If you're not tracking the information that's coming in to your CRM, and you're not able to, again, have those teaching moments with your Salesforce, then you really don't know if you're doing the right steps. And that's what really a customer relationship management tool is about, is being able to track the actions that have the most impact to be able to make a sale, right? How many touch points was I able to have with this client? Is it the best way to be able to do a phone call first, a text message, then an email, then another phone call, then maybe a drop-in. How many times do I have to do these certain actions? What exactly are those specific emails, text messages, or phone calls about? The more information that you could gather about that, the more that you could make those small tweaks and start A/B testing what is the most efficient way to be able to do it. And that's the most powerful thing about a CRM, is making sure that the data that you're getting in, you're using on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis, to be able to track the actions that are leading to actual sales. How do you incentivize data entry? It's kind of difficult sometimes, right? Because salespeople want to make sales. They don't want to do the back end work. They don't want to go through the process of entering in all this information manually, put in all their notes from the meeting that happened. They're on to the next call, they're on to the next meeting, they're on to the next potential sale, right? So how do you start incentivizing these salespeople? And I'm not here to tell you about how to run your sales team. However, there are systems that allow you to actually run contests. And within those contests, it's built right into your CRM, and it's actually incentivizing data entry, right? If you actually look at one of the CRMs that I like using, it's called Zoho. It's actually a very diverse platform. It connects to all of those things that we talked about before, whether it's your books, whether it's your marketing, whether it's your project management. But part of the CRM, it's called gamification. If anybody's heard of gamification, right? It's the idea that you take leveling up or rewards and attach it to something tangible, something real, something that actually will reward them in some specific way. So of course, sales teams run different contests all the time, but most of the time they only focus on making the sales, about the end result. Well, as a business owner, you want to make sure that they're not burning through your client base, right? You don't want to come into Albuquerque and within 10 weeks have gone through all of your potential businesses because you looked all of the potential businesses up that are in, that you want to be going after. And because of the kinds of interactions those salespeople were looking for, they were all just looking at those results and weren't looking at the quality of the way that they were interacting with them, right? Then they're burning through it. So how do you then incentivize that, right? So have a contest that says, I want 10 new leads a day that is entered into the CRM. And I want those 10 leads to have email addresses, phone numbers, right? And then the next level of that is incentivizing the actions that is taken after that. So not only are you entering in 10 new leads, but now you're following up on 15. And now you're making 20 calls per day that are follow-up calls from somebody that you didn't get a hold of the last time. And are you doing a certain number of drop-ins? And incentivizing the actions that leads to sales compared to the sales will help making sure that your sales team is actually caring about the system that they're using instead of just seeing it as another obstacle that they're having to use to be able to make sales because their manager is looking at them going, I just need to look at numbers, right? You're helping them, especially if a gamification, whether it's a badge or whether it's some sort of monetary reward or a day off or whatever you want to incentivize as that action. And it's actually really interesting to see how well especially for sales teams, how well they like competing with each other, right? So just giving them access to see how they do comparatively to everybody else and those actions that you know that leads towards sales and saying, oh, well, I need to do 15 of those. You know what? Well, I see actually my friend over here, and I really like him, but he's already done 15, I could do 17. Right? And how much more does that do that? And then you could start gauging, okay, well, if we do 17 instead of 15, right? Going back to looking at your analytics, is that something that's actually helpful? So then through gamification, you could then figure out and promote the actions that actually lead to more sales, right? So you could start looking at, okay, well, maybe 17 actually isn't good, actually 10. 10 of this specific thing, 10 calls, 10 follow-ups, 10 drop-ins, is actually the most effective action that I've seen that has lead to sales, right? So it's a really great way to incentivize doing that by making sure that you're tracking the right way and making sure that they're entering it in by letting them know that those are the things that are the most important, not focusing on just the end result, because so often we get so focused on, well, it doesn't matter what else I do as long as I make the sale. Well, actually, there's a lot of things that go into that, and there's a way to be able to track it. What are the actions that you should be tracking? Again, going back to the idea that I kind of running together of, is it most appropriate to make those phone calls? What does that phone call look like? And thinking about the way that they're doing that. So is it, and maybe just having a conversation. So you know what? I see that actually 10 phone calls for this person and 10 phone calls for this person are actually creating entirely different results. Is it because this person is doing it while they're in the car and driving? Is it because this person is in the office and they're sitting down and there's a different environment that they're in? Is there a certain tone in their voice? Is there a certain script that they're using during that phone call? Right? So not only are you tracking that specific action, but try to think about all the other surrounding aspects of what leads to the next step. And then how do you tweak behavior? Right? We already talked about the gamification and letting people see how well all of their other friends are doing that are working with them, right? Checking against not only your company, but there's a way that you can integrate tools that are actually checking against industry standard, right? How hard is this industry to be able to get a hold of? How many touch points does it take to be able to get a hold of this last year compared to this year, right? So being able to check those different data points, you're able to then have a conversation with either yourself, if you're the only one tracking this at this point, and I highly recommend anybody that's building a CRM, go through a full day using it yourself and see exactly where those data entry points are coming from. Is this really difficult to be able to put it? You know, I know that it has a mobile app on here, but every time I start it up, it actually crashes on me. Is that the kind of experience that you're having with your Salesforce, right? When you're going in there and I know that I need to make a phone call from the CRM system, but it takes me 10 steps to be able to do it when I have already called them and they're in my contacts and it takes me 2. Right? Or I could just tell Siri to be able to call them up, right? Am I cutting those corners because I've created so much resistance inside my CRM that really is becoming a pain point, and it doesn't matter whatever else you're experiencing as again, gamification or telling them what is the important thing for them to do. If they're experiencing so much friction by being able to do that, then it's going to be extremely difficult to get them on board to be able to start tracking what their actions are. So go through, and on a consistent basis, every 6 months, you should be looking at your CRM and using it for a full day if you're passing this off to somebody else. You should be experiencing absolutely every single nook and cranny of their experience with it, because you will see much more clearly what that is like and be able to make those kinds of tweaks. And are you targeting the right customers? One of the great things about data entry is that you could track anything you want, right? So is it a time of day that you're going after them? Is it a customer that is in a certain location in your city, in your state, in the country, in the world that you're going after? Right? You're able to identify those kinds of things. So what information you're bringing in about your customers and showing the value of tracking those by saying, I've identified these 3 areas that are in this zip code that have this profile index and have, you know, this kind of interaction with us. We've recognized that 80% of the time that when we've talked to them, we've made a sale. And so if you're able to then identify what those areas are, tell that to your sales team, 100% they're going to be gathering that information and saying, you know what, if I just find those people, I'm in, right? Now I have a proven track record, I have the information that matters, and they're going to be gathering that as much as possible because you've proven to them that every single time that you've identified that kind of person, you've made that sale. Again, 80%. If you could, or even 50%, if you could give them a flip of a coin to identify if that person is going to make a sale or not based off of history, then they're absolutely going to be putting in that information because you've helped them understand the value of why that information needs to be put in there. Or even helping them understand that, you know what, maybe there's some trends that we're not even looking at yet. Maybe you could start talking to them about, again, the value of analytics and showing them how to use that. So it's not just as a managerial tool, it's also as a salesperson tool to help them with their own personalized analytics, to be able to figure out every time that I do this and I say this, I could see my results. And it's extremely satisfying to be able to not only improve, but see why you've been improving and identify those areas for yourself. And you have to define the intangibles. Within Salesforce's, there really is a consistent behavior of the bottom 20% just underperforming on a consistent basis. And this idea that you're going to have to transfer your bottom 20% of your sales force to be able to figure out what they're doing wrong, whether it's within your training, within your coaching, within your hiring process. But you have to understand, what are those top performers in your sales force doing, right? You could use the analytics to be able to say, I've listened to their phone calls and they have a very friendly tone, and you could hear their smile over the phone, right? That is something that you need to then be focusing on, that I call it an intangible, but it really is something that you could say, I've identified why this, because everything else is the same. They make the same number of actions here. They're consistently on time. They're always punctual. They're always dressed in a certain way. They're always thinking about that. They're always having questions about me. But there's this one thing that makes them really special. And if you're able to negate all of the other factors through analytics, how other people are then showing up, doing those actions, you could say these are the select things that makes that particular action, that particular person so special, that makes us more sales. And that's really it. That's all the things, that's all the questions that you need to start asking yourself. Only a few questions. I like questions. So actually now I'm going to go ahead and open it up for you guys. If you have any questions for me, or if not, I'm just going to start asking you guys some more questions. You're stunned. It's so much information. I know. Yes.
All right.
Your name?
My name is Kara Myers.
Kara, nice to meet you.
So my question for you would be, and you may have covered this at the beginning because we did come in a few minutes late, and we apologize for that.
Yeah, it's fine.
What CRMs do you recommend? That would be my first question. And then my company has us using Insightly. What is your impression of Insightly?
Got it. The tool that is best is the tool that you use. So I can't, and this is actually something I did cover at the very beginning. I don't recommend any one CRM. In fact, I've done some very interesting research for actually a pet company. She's a pet sitting business. She has 20 different pet sitters, and we found a CRM, and it's kind of like a CRM, but it's project management, CRM kind of built into it. You're able to track a lot of things. You're able to gather some personal data from there. And I was actually able to figure out that a solution that would fit so well for her that that's what we went with instead of something that I've used before. So it really is on a case-by-case basis. And that's the reason why I ask so many questions of yourself that you have to start thinking about, right? And honestly, there's probably 2, 3, 4, 5 different CRMs out there that would be a really good fit if you've thought about this information beforehand, right? If you've put in the work to be able to say, I understand my process, and I understand how to make that process work with the CRM. So it's much less, again, I have someone that uses a spreadsheet as a CRM, and it's effective for them because they're able to track it. Right? They understand behavior, and they're able to get enough information out of it that says, I need to follow up with this person in this way, and this is whose responsibility it is, right? So it's more about, again, that's why I wanted to talk here today to you guys, that it's not about that particular software. However, there are some things that could help you through integrations, through other systems, but it's more about understanding your own process and making sure you're asking yourself those questions that matter the most instead of, what is the best CRM? Because the best CRM is the one that you set up the most efficiently.
Charles, my name is
Glenn.
Would you be able to define what the top 5 are that you're familiar with, that you're intimately familiar with? Not that they're the best,
right,
but the ones that you feel most comfortable with, you've done a lot of work with. Zoho, you know.
Right, so Zoho, vTiger, I've worked with. Actually, let me go ahead and pull out my phone and go to the CRM section that I actually have downloaded right now. Nutshell is another one that's kind of a third party, but they're smaller, which is kind of nice. So I said Pipedrive, I said Zoho, I've said Nutshell. I'm also familiar with one that's focused actually on telemarketing, which is called Phone Burner. And I've gone through so many different other ones, but I'd say those are the 4 primary ones I like working with, that I'm very familiar with and ready to rock and roll on. And so on the extremely like customizable side, you're looking at Zoho, right? Because of how many different connections that it has. I'd say the less connections side of things, I would probably say Pipedrive, but I recommend them for entirely different purposes. I haven't. What do you like about that?
I think for the application of specifically for a home-based network marketing business, that's a great tool because it's totally social. All your social feeds are coming in.
Oh yeah.
The minute you enter somebody's contact, their name and their email, it builds a dossier on them, automatically, magically. And you're looking at so immediately, all this sucked everything in, and you're looking at that before you make the phone call. So absolutely, just one I use for one of my businesses.
Actually,
and I use different CRMs for different businesses. So.
Oh yeah. Actually, was talking to a real estate agent and realized that there are specific CRMs just for real estate agents that, again, talking about those templates, talking about the areas in which real estate agents communicate with their clients. They've built in processes and have shown you kind of on a guide-by-guide basis that says, hey, here are some things that we know that has kind of worked. Tweak the wording that fits your particular style, right? It connects to your phone so you could send SMS messages automatically through the system without even having to touch a button, right? So there's actually a lot of CRMs that are starting to be built out for all kinds of different industries. So it really is about saying, am I interested in finding something that has kind of been built already for this industry? Or do I have, like a lot of businesses really are so unique, that you need something general and to build in your own processes? Yes?
Do most of these have apps on your phone? Do you know?
All of the ones that I use have a mobile application. In fact, all of the softwares, whether it's a CRM, project management, or otherwise, I am mobile first. I don't know if you guys recognize, but I'm actually using a Chromebook over here. I can't download anything besides Android apps and use web-based platforms. And everything that I've used for large corporations to all the way down to 2 to 3 people on a Salesforce or on a business have been able to use the platforms that are done through there. And that's where everything's starting to shift over. And if you want to be flexible, you should be looking at something that is accessible from your phone. If they don't have an app, and that honestly, when I make recommendations for mobile applications or for CRMs, I'm looking at their mobile applications because that is such an integral way that anybody is going to be interacting with that information. If you are a sales team manager and you're out on the road and you want to look at analytics, are you able to do that from your phone, right? And some of them are just like, you might not be able to do it from the app itself, but sometimes there's workarounds where you could request desktop mode on your browser, on your phone to be able to access that, right? So then there's that conversation about, well, how easy do you need to access it and in what environment, again, are you going to be in when you're doing that?
Okay, Alex from Better Business Bureau. So what do you recommend when dealing with CRM systems, legacy systems? Like we have a CRM with a lot of features that we were talking about, but we're stuck with it. We have to use it. So what do we do to improve it?
I would look at how much analytics you're actually gathering right now, right? What information are you putting into it? And how valuable is that to be able to make decisions on what else might be useful for yourself? And thinking about, number one, even if you're stuck with this CRM and you're limited to the features that are there, right? What are your processes already in place for your sales team, right? So it's more about understanding what your needs are than trying to fit your needs to what you have available. Because you'll find a way, and there's so many things that you could do, even if you're, segregated into an area and with the tools that you have within that CRM, there's a lot of ways to be able to make those kind of connections or build in a process to help manipulate the tool to be able to do it. So even if you are working at a company that your kind of legacy built into a CRM, it's more about understanding what things that you deem are the most valuable first, and then figuring out the best way to make that work with the tools that you have available. Process, guys. Yeah. Other questions? How many people here have actually used a CRM tool before? Okay. And some examples of some of those CRMs?
Hobson's Connect.
Excellent. How did you choose those two?
Like her Hobson's Connect was a legacy through higher education.
Okay.
And HubSpot, we tested it out as a possible recommendation for some of our clients.
Excellent. And was that just recommended to you, or did you do some research beforehand?
It's because it was tied into the marketing platform of HubSpot.
Okay.
That's mainly why we were exploring that one.
Excellent.
And so I've also got experience with Salesforce.
Both extremely diverse platforms, right?
Yes.
And they have that sliding scale of the needs that you have for the features, right? So when you were thinking about using HubSpot, what was your testing like?
A lot of it was from a marketing funnel, so people coming to the website, filling out forms and how that integrated into the CRM, and then setting a pipeline for that particular sales team to follow up on those forms. But a lot of those leads that were coming in, they were very hot leads already, so it was kind of
So the speed of the CRM was something that was very important to you, making sure that you got on it right away, right?
And then also the transparency, so multiple salespeople could see what was going on, so because they had a call center, so somebody called in to discuss, their account, then somebody else could also see that.
A really interesting point I didn't talk about earlier was if you do have multiple people on your Salesforce that you're going to be distributing leads to, not only are you pulling in leads from a lot of different sources, maybe you're buying leads from somewhere or whatever it is, how do you determine who gets those leads, right? Is it from the type of lead that they are? Is it just kind of a round robin ideal, right? Some CRMs have the functionality to be able to do that. Some CRMs is just like you have to particularly assign this group of leads to this person and you have to import them. So the ease of being able to use your leads across the best salesperson is going to be something that you also need to start identifying within your process to help say, actually, this person is really good at going after this particular kind of client or this industry, so they always need to get the leads no matter if they already have 50, right? So it's helping yourself understand more about what leads are the best fit and how you give that lead to that person. Is it extremely important that they get back together with them in 24 hours, right? Is it because, and with them, are you saying every time I give you a lead, is there some trigger inside the CRM that you need to set up that says, I just gave you a lead? Or at a certain period of time of the day, right? Let's say when I first check in the morning, at noon, and at 3 o'clock, I'm checking my CRM to see what the activity is in a certain area. Is that more of a process thing that you need to build in? And again, working with what your needs are first, and then deciding the CRM about how to build that into the platform that's going to be working best for you. It's scanning. We'll see if I can turn it back on. So, CRM questions.
So, I'm pretty new to all this.
Excellent.
It sounds like a CRM pretty much better works with teams than maybe an individual. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I work in commercial real estate.
Yeah.
I am just north of 50, and I'm the kid with the gee whiz ideas.
Okay.
So I still get emails forwarded to me by them being printed and left on my desk. So I don't think people who I work with...
So much printing emails?
Printing them and putting them on my desk.
Wow.
Yes, well, sometimes I ask for an electronic version of something, they print them and give it to me.
This is awesome.
Yeah, so,
okay.
So, anyway, I could go all day about that.
Yeah.
But I guess the issue I would have is for something like this, and I did look at HubSpot one time.
Yeah.
It sounds like if
HubSpot's going to be way too diverse and
Yeah.
also built for teams.
Yeah,
and what
that's
you're
what-
talking about. And I'll have to look it up again. But if you're talking again real estate, the CRM that I was talking about, something with an animal, I think lion CRM or something actually, and it's actually built for one person. And with one person in mind, you as an independent are subscribing to this. I think it's like $50 a month, and it gives you access to the kind of features that they found that real estate people need.
Okay, because right now I've been using like a blend of Microsoft OneNote, spreadsheet, and now that's an Outlook.
It's kind of difficult to be able to keep track of everything.
Yeah, everything's all over the place, and like my mailing list is on MailChimp, and then something else is over here. So.
Right. So again, thinking about what your best process is in documenting, I get a lead. This is the conversation that we have that identifies them as this kind of client, right? And especially in real estate, you're talking long tail sales, right? Sometimes you develop a relationship and it takes a few years, or they buy multiple houses from you over a span of 5, 6, 7 years, right? So having that information to be able to track back on an easily identifiable way that you could say, here's their contact information. Oh, this is the last time I talked to them. Maybe I should just go say hi. They're probably not ready to buy. They're probably not ready to do anything. Maybe they could recommend someone else that is looking for a house, right? So having that area that, again, understanding your process and finding something that, like I said, I'm pretty sure it's not tiger. I'm pretty sure it's lion. I remember like some sort of like aggressive animal on this thing. And I'll actually look up that CRM afterwards.
I do know, I work in the commercial world. There are some developed specifically for commercial real estate, and I can look into more further. It's just, the initial outlay of, a couple $100 to see if that's actually something that's going to work for you is kind of daunting when you're first starting.
Right. So do you find it more difficult to retain information in the same place, or is it just reminding yourself about what the next step is, or what are you most experiencing a problem with right now?
I think some of it has to do with like where you put that information and remembering exactly where you got it. For example, when I first got started a couple years ago, I would talk to someone who says, I'm an investor, so if you find anything that is good for an investor, let me know.
Yeah.
And I'd start a spreadsheet, and I'd put it away. And then 3 months later, someone calls up and says, I got this investment property. I'm like, where the heck did I put that spreadsheet with that investor's name on it? So maybe I have 1 or 2 people, I don't have like a full database, so anyway, I do a search for people like that.
Right.
So that becomes a problem, is kind of remembering where you put that information, how to get that information.
Just having
And
it.
as I tell people I work with, who complain about a lot of things, that you also have to feed the beast. If you're feeding the beast, you don't have that information in there.
Yeah.
So.
A lot of these CRMs have the ability to be able to attach documents onto a specific lead. So you just look up the lead, and sometimes it could be just in the notes section. Especially, I like using Google stuff because, again, it's accessible from any platform. As long as you have access to the internet, you have access to whatever you need on there, right? Whether it's my passwords or a document or whatever, you could just drop a link into that specific file. So even if the CRM that you're looking at that you like, that's kind of more bare bones, that you don't have to operate all these other things and feel like it's overbearing, right? You could just drop a link into that file, into their profile that says this is where the document is. And you just kind of build up those habits of you have the steps that goes along with it. But again, understanding that it takes that extra amount of time to be able to create the document, copy and paste the link over in the section and then move forward. But the more and more that you realize that if I'm going to go and try to look this up 3, 4, 5 months from now, if I know exactly where it's at, right, having that second brain, that second memory, I don't know where it's at, but I know how to find it, Exactly, and just writing down that process that says, I will do these things because I am getting so much value out of it in the long term. Any other questions? We do have a whole nother I think 8 minutes? No, 12? No, we still have another 20, 38 minutes together. So you guys could ask me any kind of questions about CRMs that you want. Maybe I'll just ask you guys some questions. I'm really good at asking questions. So who here has had a CRM that is forced on them that they've had to make changes themselves into the system and then maybe train on somebody else or have to change for your particular thing? Is anybody here? Yeah? Yeah?
I went from HubSpot to Salesforce with one client, and it's been a learning curve.
So you're using Salesforce with somebody else? How much experience do you have with Salesforce? Because I know that there's companies, in fact, actually someone was here earlier, and she has like 4 different Salesforce certifications. You guys get certified on different aspects of Salesforce because it is so extremely diverse and so built out, right, for larger companies. It's not worth it for a small company to be able to pay that much. And again, you're literally having to have an expert come in just to tell you how to use the thing and be able to set it up because there's so much that goes into it. So how have you been dealing with that?
So originally, I'm a web designer, web developer,
Yeah.
so I build landing pages, build marketing emails, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So we signed up with the Pardot, which is the marketing side of Salesforce.
Yeah.
But because nobody there knows anything about Salesforce, I'm kind of being the go-to person for everything.
Right.
Like setting up their pipelines and setting up their users, and I'm like, oh, this is
How
not
are
what
you
I signed
learning
up
about
for.
it?
I do lots of reading and Google.
Reading. Interesting. So you go on Google, you find articles.
Salesforce has great, they have great knowledge base and help articles in there, but
Right.
a lot of it is Google.
And it's by third-party people that you're going through and finding this information from, not from Salesforce directly through Google? Interesting. And why do you like about these third-party people than going through the official documentation in Salesforce?
Because there's some gaps in the documentation.
Oh, interesting.
And it also depends on the version of Salesforce that you're using. They have the classic version, now they have their lightning version, which it's just made it pretty. They upgraded the look.
Lightning, it's like platinum
Yeah.
version. Yeah, it looks so good.
It didn't make it any easier.
Yeah, of course.
So it's been interesting.
Interesting. And how long have you been doing this?
For 3 months.
3 months for Salesforce. How proficient do you feel that you're at this particular point?
At this point, I'm getting a little bit more comfortable, but
Yeah.
not quite there.
Like once you've done it and everything. So
Yeah.
most of the time it's always about doing this Google search, reading about it from this third-party source, and then going to a point where you're like, okay, well, let me try it out now.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me get the process down before I go to them and say, okay, this is what you need to do. Because, they've got all the training there that they can go through, but it is a lot of training.
Are you able to work at a sandbox?
Yeah.
Yeah? So you're able to kind of test some of these things out without breaking any of your systems? That's something I highly recommend to anybody here, especially once you've already chosen a CRM, after you've released it. When you want to make changes, you want to test the specific aspect, especially if it's some sort of automation piece or connection, right? You find a way to be able to create a secondary profile, or if they have a feature in there that lets you work inside a sandbox without having to mess up anything else there. Highly recommend doing that, because if you don't thoroughly test it, for sure something's going to come up where the connection works 9 times out of 10, but that 10th time crashes the system or makes an error or completely deletes it or it doesn't go through. So whatever that situation is, right? If you don't have that ability to be able to test it out, then it's going to be extremely detrimental to rolling it out to the whole sales team all at the same time, even if you make the update overnight while they're not using it. So highly recommend testing it in an area that's a little bit safer for you. So think about that in terms of when you're building this out, does it already have that feature? Or again, another alternate way to be able to do that is create a dummy profile that you could make those specific tests for. So I want to import leads into this thing, but I want to make sure it only takes this information and it distributes them in a very specific way, right? Go ahead and create some dummy accounts, make that test happen, and see if it operates sometimes unexpectedly in ways that you thought that were absolutely logical, because they set it up in such a way they're like, oh, A goes to B, connected, right? Go ahead and do the trigger and go ahead and do this action, right? And you're like, that makes sense to me. And then you go through and you press the button and you just sit there and you wait and nothing happens, right? So if you assume that it's going to work, oftentimes it's going to have some sort of hitch in there as well. Questions, comments, concerns? What is the thing that's holding you back from right now from getting a CRM system?